All right, we did it. We did it. That's credits, baby. All right, let me turn these lights on. Let's talk about the ups and downs of Silent Hill 2, shall we? Let's do it. So, let me turn this music down. Oh gosh, I have a lot to say about this game. Let me start out by saying this. The survival horror genre, and specifically this kind of survival horror genre where you have combat, inventory management, ammo, health management, not like Outlast kinds of games, but like Resident Evil types of games. Those kinds of survival horror games are... Maybe I can't decide what my favorite genre is. It's either that or Souls-like. I go back and forth on those two. So this game I already was set up for success. Plus, I love the original Silent Hill trilogy. So, I expected to like this game. I was worried they would mess it up. I was worried that they would take some of the life out of it, the soul, that weird Silent Hill, almost like whimsical horror, you know? It's like that weird, twisted, dark shit. They didn't. They nailed it. They nailed the Silent Hill feel. I have to say, I think this is one of my very favorite video games of all time. When I think about how much I've enjoyed this game, I think about Resident Evil 7, The Evil Within, Dead Space 2, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2 Remake. These are some of my very, very favorite games ever. And this game is right up there with those. And I'll tell you why. First of all, yes, they nailed the feel of Silent Hill. Somehow, Bloober Team, of all people, figured out the Silent Hill tone. And they did it with sound design. I think the sound design is the #1 most exceptional thing about the original Silent Hill trilogy. The sound design is so good. They know when to be quiet. They know when to be loud. They know when to have the weird sounds in there that are just scary in just the right weird, mysterious ways. This game was able to recreate that. The light in this game, it's so dark. It's so claustrophobically dark. They nailed that too. Just the vibe of it is on point. The thing I was the most worried about though was the combat. The Silent Hill 2 combat is a rare breed in that it's not good, but that's what makes it good. You know, like it's good in that it sucks. The combat sucks in the original trilogy, let's be honest. But it's because of that it makes you feel worthless. It makes you feel like you can't beat these things and gives you that feeling of hopelessness because the controls are so bad, and just the way that you wield your weapon in that game like a noob. They did something really special with this one. They had a challenge. They could have gone a lot of different ways, and almost all of them would have been a mistake. They could have tried to keep that. I think that would have been a mistake. They could have tried to just modernize it and make it more Resident Evil. That would have been a mistake. What they managed to do instead was, and I think what it's rooted in, is very good enemy AI. The enemy AI in this game is very good. And what that leads to is this weird, frenetic, chaotic combat where the balance is just right, where you need to rely on melee some if you want to conserve ammo, but you can lean on your gun if you need to. But the melee combat in particular in this game is freaking awesome because it gives you, the controls are good. The controls are fine. The way that you wield the weapon, you know, like when you swing it, you kind of lurch forward like you really don't know what you're doing, but the controls are tight. But more importantly, the way that the enemies react to that makes every encounter harrowing. It kind of reminded me a little bit of The Last of Us 2, where it's like just taking one person down, like just takes a lot out of you. And it was definitely very much like that, because you're swinging your weapon. These enemies are dodging, they're stepping back, they're lunging at you, they're waiting for attack windows. The enemies in this game are smart. and they know when to attack you. So even toward the end of the game, when I had tons of health and ammo and I had gotten pretty good at the controls, I was still taking damage from regular ass enemies because they would lunge at me at a time that I didn't expect them to, or I would swing my weapon just a little too early and lurch forward, and then they would hit me. There was so much of that. The combat in this game is excellent. It's so good. They did a good job of adapting the story, I think. They really found some ways, though, to embellish in the right ways. First of all, this game is long. I think it took me like 23 hours to beat it. I was pretty thorough, but I didn't like purposefully go out of my way to do. There's no side content in this game, really. I went through every single room. I checked every single drawer, that kind of thing. It took me about 23 hours to beat this game. And so like the hospital in the original is a very big area too, but here it's even bigger. And there's so much more going on, like in the apartment, in the hospital, in the prison, in all the main areas. There's like lots of rooms that you can't go in. There's whole wings sometimes that you can't go in, and the areas themselves they're big, but they're not monstrous. In this game, they're huge. The hospital is huge. The apartment complex is huge. It's not that much bigger, but you can go in every single room almost. So so it took me 3 hours. I think it took me like 5 hours to get through the hospital. It took me like 4 hours to get through the apartments at the beginning. I mean, this game takes some time to get through, and it's not boring. Like, they did a good job of making that all very interesting. And the way that the bosses are embellished on, because the bosses were a bit of a hot mess in the original, let's be real. They had the tone, they had the horror, but they didn't have the fun of a boss fight. In this game, every single boss fight they figure out this way to like take it above and beyond, where like it subverts your expectations in just the right way suddenly. I mean, every single fight in the game is phenomenal. And they do a great job of using this weird combat structure that's not in any other game. The closest I can think of for combat in this game that I can draw a comparison to is the Callisto Protocol. But this game seems to succeed where that game failed, because that game, there's a lot of like swinging and dodging and stuff like that too, but it's so formulaic that at a certain point, pretty early in the game, if you just figure it out and suddenly it's basically a glorified QTE. The combat in this game never reaches that point. It's always chaos because they keep throwing curveballs at you. It's so good. If I think of criticisms, there were a couple of minor bugs with the camera. It would do that thing that Unreal 5 does sometimes, where the camera would just go if you got too close to a wall or something. Not that big a deal. I mean, honestly, there was a point in the middle that was a little bit of a slog. There's an area in the middle of the game, the prison, that I didn't enjoy as much as the rest of the game. It wasn't the level design wasn't quite as interesting. There weren't any new enemy types really, and it maybe a little bit longer than it needs to be, or I don't know. It just wasn't quite as interesting. But right after that, it picks right back up. I was afraid it was going to do that thing that horror games do, where it's like really good to start out with. In fact, horror movies do this too, where they start out really good and then just get kind of progressively worse. This game does not do that. It pretty much stays solid throughout. And really, honestly, the prison's good. It's still very, very good. I just think it's the worst area in the game because it's not quite as inventive to me as the other areas. But man, I really struggle to think of any other criticisms. This game changed the way that I look at horror games. I mean, honestly, this is one of the very, very best video games I've ever played. As far as a historical significance and influence angle and all that, no, of course it's not as important as the original Silent Hill 2, but it's better. It's better. It was a lot more fun for me. The Silent Hill 2 ranked, I don't know, somewhere in the 200s for me, just because those older mechanics and fixed angle cameras and all that stuff, they grate on me. I'm not very patient with that kind of thing. This is one of my very favorite video games of all time. This is maybe a top 10 ever game. I absolutely loved this game. The resource management, the combat, the level design, the bosses, the horror. This is a genuinely scary game. There's not really a single thing out of place. Not really. Not really. I mean, the criticisms that I came up with are just scraping the bottom of the barrel. I absolutely adored this game, and I was not expecting to like it that much. I was hoping it would be not an embarrassment. That's what I was hoping it would be. It's so far transcendent beyond all of that. I loved this game. If you are a horror fan of any kind, you absolutely have to play this game. Whether you've played the original or not, you don't have to play the original to play this. It makes things a little bit better in certain places because there's some callbacks, but you don't have to. It's amazing. It's an amazing game. All right, I'm going to shut up. Last couple of things here. The bottom center of the screen says that we have beaten 89 games in 2024 and 536 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are an illusion. We've now beaten 90 games in 2024 and 537 since we started doing this. Let's go. Okay, last order of business here. Silent Hill 2, it has been a dream. But we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. Bye. Love you. Appreciate you.